Okay, now we get to Siman Tov Reish Yud Ches, chapter 618, laws related to a sick person on Yom Kippur. Unfortunately, the copy machine is not working, so I couldn't get the English printed translation. I have it here on the screen, but you can follow along in the books that I gave you there. Siman Tov Reish Yud Ches, chapter 618, Din Chilad Yom Kippurim, the law of the sick person on Yom Kippur, Ubo Yud Ches Ifim, and in it there are 18 subsections. Aleph, 1. So first we have to define what does it mean when a person says, I need to eat. We kept on saying in chapter 6:17, we kept on saying when she says I need to eat, and we'll explain in chapter 6:18 what I need to eat means, give her food. Right? So now what does this mean when a person says I need to eat? A sick person who says, I need to eat. And even if he doesn't explicitly state that if I don't eat, I'm going to be in danger. But he just says, I need to eat. And he only says so, even if he says so after he's informed that it's Yom Kippur. He says, I need to eat. And they tell him it's Yom Kippur. He says, I know, but if I don't eat, I'm in danger. Or he knows it's Yom Kippur. He's sitting in shul. So we know that he knows it's Yom Kippur. But he says, give me food. Or he says, I can't handle this fast, I'm going to get really sick. And or any other type of language like that. Here's the key. We can tell from his intention, even though he is fully aware that today is Yom Kippur, unless he needs to eat. That's the definition. This is the halachic definition we've been saying the whole time that a person says I need to eat. Definition is the person is aware that it's Yom Kippur, understands the gravity of what Yom Kippur is, and still insists I need to eat. He's given food immediately. Why? Until he says, okay, enough, I'm okay. Why is that? We do not consider him to be a wicked person who's trying to scam his way out of fasting. We don't assume that about Jews. And we can safely assume that he feels in himself that he truly needs it. Because he quotes the verse here that we've been quoting in the Gemara, that the heart of man knows the sorrow of his own self. In other words, what Alter Rebbe is telling us is, we can safely assume that all Jews are aware of the gravity of Yom Kippur and would not break the fast of Yom Kippur unless they absolutely needed to. So as long as, in other words, if he says, I need to eat, and it's the first thing in the morning, he hasn't gone to shul, he hasn't put on his leather shoes yet, his non-leather shoes yet, so maybe he doesn't remember it's Yom Kippur, he's a little, he woke up in the morning, he's not sure. Okay, so then he says, I need to eat, just like he says every morning he needs to eat breakfast. But if it's to the point where we know that he is fully aware that it's Yom Kippur and yet insists he needs to eat, that is enough. Because a Jew would never do that to himself unless he absolutely needed to. That this is the halacha's assumption. It's a beautiful thing. Sorry? Okay, this is between him and Hashem. He did a mistake. He didn't know. It's something else. But it's a beautiful thing, though, that the halacha almost takes into consideration the depth of the Yiddish neshama. When it comes to other mitzvahs, not necessarily the same thing apply. When it comes to Yom Kippur, no Jew is going to willingly say, I want to eat, just because they're trying to scam their way out of Yom Kippur. Nobody does that. If they say they need to eat, it's because they truly need to. Yeah, we're going to get to the details of that also. But the first thing it does is qualify what it means, I need to eat. Right? When a person says I need to eat, it's just to give the halachic parameter for what this is, and what the reason is, and why is it that we trust this person. Even though ordinarily we say that a person is kardavet asma, a person is biased to himself. Meaning a person can't bear witness on himself. He's biased to himself, obviously. But over here we don't say a person's biased to himself, as if he's trying to finagle his way into leniency. We say, no, he's a Jew, he's got a neshama, and he would never break Yom Kippur unless he absolutely had to. Right? And therefore, even if there are 100 doctors who say, no, this guy does not need to eat. Now, here's a line that we talked a little bit about in the Gemara, and I assumed one way and I was wrong. He says like this, even if they tell him eating is dangerous for him. Shoymin l'chola, you listen to the one who is sick, rather than to the doctor. That's quite something. So we have to look at the footnote here. Okay, Radvaz, look at footnote 4. Oh, you don't have the English footnotes. Okay, I'll read it. They tell you to look at the Radvaz in Hebrew, but in English they actually write something about it. Let's see. Radvaz maintains that the patient's word is accepted against the doctors only with regard to food, but not with regard to medicines. See section 328.12. In the present work, discusses similar issues with regard to the prohibition of taking medication on Shabbos. If a patient requests medicine on Shabbos, then even if the doctor thinks that is unnecessary, the patient's request is respected. If, however, the doctor deems the medicine to be harmful, his warning should be heeded. The author of Aruch HaShulchan disagrees with the distinction drawn by Radvaz. He maintains that if a patient is so ill as to be bedridden, we do not rely on the principle that he is more knowledgeable about his condition than the doctor. So Aruch HaShulchan, interesting. I'm sure there's much more written about this, but the Alter Rebbe doesn't explain what the condition of this patient is. He just says that the patient says, I need to eat, and doctors say, no, eating is dangerous, we still give him food. Whereas Aruch HaShulchan says, someone who is sick to the point that he's in a hospital bed or in bed, and he says, I need to eat, and doctors say eating is dangerous, then don't give him food, in Aruch HaShulchan's view. Now, this would be an interesting distinction. Because if the person's bedridden, if the person's a healthy human person walking around, and it so happens to be right now he's sick because of the fast, and he says, I need to eat, okay, give him food. If the person's sick that he's bedridden, then that would mean, let's say, there's more to his condition than just being hungry. Maybe perhaps why this is why the Aruch HaShulchan says to listen to the doctor versus him. But I wonder where the Alter Rebbe would stand in that case of the Aruch HaShulchan where this patient is bedridden. It's not, there's nothing explicit here from the Alter Rebbe other than you listen to the patient even if the doctor says it's dangerous. Right, so when it comes to the issue of pills, when it comes to the issue of pills, the same source that Radvaz says, no, you listen to the doctor. Doctor says the pill is no good for him, don't give it to him, which is rather reasonable. Here we're talking about an issue of food. It's Yom Kippur, right? What can you say? Yeah. I did. When we learned the Gemara, I assumed the other way, but I was wrong. I mentioned then that we'll see it in the Shulchan Aruch, and I wasn't sure, but I assumed, but I was wrong in my assumption. So, okay, we're going to see about Gentile doctors, and we're going to see that Gentile doctors are in this case are accepted just like a Jewish doctor. So we'll see. Yeah. No. If the doctors say that, that's what we saw the other way, but the doctor is saying it's harmful, but the patient is saying, I need it. So the patient is given. I have to do more investigation in this because I'm wondering if like the doctor says food is safe for you, but that food is dangerous for you, right? That's different than saying all food's dangerous for you. No, I wonder. We'll have to look into this further. Right. Exactly. Right. Now this is like, is this all things considered being considered equal, or is this a blanket statement that's for all rules? I don't know. I wonder. I really wonder, and I'd like to do some more investigation. But it's an interesting statement. Sorry. For what? No, but a diabetic could only eat certain things, or must eat certain things, or sorry. Food is food. I don't know. Yeah. Anyway, further investigation is required. Anyway, so conclusion, because if he is a patient and he is aware it's Yom Kippur, and he has all of his wits about him, and he says, I need to eat it, then definitely it's because he needs it. Considering that we know that he knows it's Yom Kippur, nonetheless, he's asking for food, and it must be because he actually really needs it. Depends on the situation. Okay, let's do one more halacha here, and then we'll get into details of one doctor against two doctors and this and that. Okay, even if the patient says, I don't need to eat, there's a doctor, even if it's a non-Jewish doctor, and he says he needs to eat this guy. He is fed in accordance with the instructions of the doctors, even if the doctor is not Jewish. So long as the doctor is an expert. Even the doctor doesn't explicitly state that if you don't feed him, it's dangerous. He says, look, it's quite possible if he doesn't eat, his sickness will, overpower him. I don't know for sure, but I'm pretty sure it's possible that if he doesn't eat, this person's going to get really sick. And he is given food because we are afraid that maybe indeed we'll get very sick and then be in danger. So the patient says, I don't need to eat. And the doctor says, look, it's quite possible he'll get very sick if he doesn't eat. His word saying, I don't need to eat, is considered for nothing. That we should be stringent because of his word. In other words, when he says, I need to eat for leniency, his word is taken as the highest form of instruction and he's given food. If, however, he says, I don't need to eat, then we ignore his protest. Why? Perhaps he's a little delirious from his sickness.